Welcome back to Design Mastery, the ultimate UI UX bootcamp. In this section, we're going to cover wireframe, prototyping, and user flow. We will create this high-fidelity wireframe and add some prototyping to this our design. The lesson note used for this bootcamp will be made available in the description below. After making a purchase, you will be added into a special WhatsApp group where I will attend to all your questions throughout this bootcamp. If you've already made the purchase, a message will be sent to your email containing the link to the new course material and the link to the WhatsApp group so you can join. And if you're new to this channel, please kindly hit the subscribe button and let's get into it. In this chapter, we're going to be looking at wireframing and prototyping. Wireframing and prototyping are crucial in the design process. They provide a roadmap for both the designer and the developer to visualize the structure and functionality of a digital product before diving into details. Let me give you an example with the construction industry. Before they start a building construction, they require an architect to design what is called a building plan. In this building plan, they specify the number of rooms, the number of sitting rooms, dining tables, and how these rooms are going to look like in the building plan. The building plan is the same with the wireframing in UI design. So you can specify the layout and, if possible, some of the functionalities of that particular app within the wireframing. Wireframes are a simplified version of a digital product layout. They allow designers to map out the structure and functionality of the design without getting distracted by colors, fonts, or images. Let's look at the different types of wireframes and how we can create them for our project. The first on our list here is the low fidelity. Low fidelity wireframes are basic sketch that represents the overall structure of a page or app. They typically use simple shapes like boxes, circles, line to represent different elements like buttons, text, or images. They focus on layout and user flow rather than design details. A simple example of a low fidelity is the image we have on the right hand side. The boxes with this cross inside represent images. The lines here you see represent headings and text respectively. Let's look at some of the reasons why we need low fidelity in our design process. The first one is brainstorming. The second, ideation and quick iteration. Some of the tools used for this include you can use the hand sketch, you can use Balsamic, or basic shapes in Figma and Adobe XD. A simple example is a homepage layout with rectangles for images, boxes for text, and circles for buttons. This is the example. We have all the rectangles, we have some circles here for buttons like the video buttons. The next type of wireframe here is the mid-fidelity wireframe. Mid-fidelity wireframes add more details to the structure while focusing on layout and functionality. Mid-fidelity wireframe starts to include more accurate representation of the design elements like buttons, input field, and navigation bars. Grayscale is still used, but there may be clearer distinction between different UI components. The focus is still on the structure and basic functionality, refining the user experience from the low fidelity. Some tools used for this include Figma, Sketch, Adobe XD, and some other tools for creating wireframes. An example on the right hand side, it's a simple e-commerce wireframe with defined areas for images, buttons with labels, e.g. that's the logout, and the input fields that we have here, that's for the search bar at the top and also the newsletter at the bottom. So we're going to take on another example again, taking our low fidelity wireframe and then transforming it into a mid wireframe by labeling buttons, defining navigation items, and adding placeholders for images or content section. So let's look at the last type of wireframing before we can jump back to Figma and create these 3 types of wireframes. The next on our list here is the high fidelity wireframes. High fidelity wireframes are close to the final design and include more visual detail such as color, font, and images. At this stage, the wireframe should look very similar to the finished product in terms of structure and functionality. It might also include basic interactivity to demonstrate the user flow. At this point now, the purpose of this is to make sure that we have a prototype that is ready for development. Tools like Figma, Sketch, Adobe XD, and other advanced design tools are used for this. An example on the right hand side is a detailed website wireframe with images, styled buttons, correct typography, and fully defined input field. Our example for this is to take what we have in our mid-level fidelity and convert it into high fidelity. Now we can jump back to Figma and create our low fidelity, mid fidelity, and high fidelity of the food delivery app. Here in Figma, I want us to use this add button here to create a new page. I will click on this and I'll rename this Wireframes. So for the first page, we're going to be creating a mobile app wireframe. I'm going to click on frames, then we can pick any of this. But for my design, I always go with the smallest screen. I'll be selecting the iPhone 13 mini. Now let's add our grid system. Here, I'm going to click on the plus sign at the bottom here, then set the grid. We're going to be using columns and the count, I'll set that to 4. Here, I will set the margin to 16 and then set the gutters to 8. This is okay, so we can close this. The next thing is to now start adding content to this. And for the first stream, this is going to be our low fidelity. Sometimes this is also referred to as the low fi. Here, we want to add 2 icons, one for the search and another for notification. Then in between, I will create the location of the user. To achieve this, I will press letter O on my keyboard to create an ellipse, then hold Shift to add this. I'm going to drag and then drop this here and Ctrl D to duplicate. I'll do the same thing here. Press R on your keyboard to create a rectangle. This time I'm going to drag somewhere here and let me zoom in so we can all see properly. Here I'll reduce the size of this and then adjust the weight of this. I can as well Ctrl D to duplicate this and do the same thing, but this time I can make this longer. Okay, so this is good. And then the next thing is to now create the meal of the day. I'll press R on my keyboard to create a rectangle. Then this is going to be here. So you can make this any size or height you want, but for this, I'm keeping this particular height. Then we can add the corner radius. So let's make the height even. I'll just make that 120. Then we can add the corner radius. Let's say 12 for this. The next thing now is to create categories for our meal since it's a delivery app. So I'll press R on the keyboards and I want 4 categories. So I'll prefer this to be a square. So 80 by 80. I have category 1. So let's adjust the corner radius to 12. I'll bring this somewhere here. Control D. I'll just drag this and then drop this somewhere here. So let's say this is our 4 categories. Then we can now display all the meals that are available on the home screen, or probably a recommended meal for the user. So I'll press R. So this particular one here, it's going to represent the text for me. This is going to be text, and then I can press R now, which is going to take the real meal. So this is going to be an image with the name of the meal. So Control D, I'll just drag that and drop this here. So let's see how this is looking so far. Okay, we have this too, and this is okay. Let me just increase the height. Let's make sure that the height is even. So I'll make that 200, and the width is okay, 160. So select this too as well. Let's make the corner radius 12 again to match all other ones. So you see we have our low fidelity, and at this point you notice I'm not thinking too much because it's just to give our app a structure. Then we can select this again, Command D to duplicate this too, and I'll drag this to down somewhere here. And the secret is we just want to make sure that the height of these items here, that's the spacing here, is the same with the spacing between these two. So we know that if I select this, hold shift to select this, if you press Alt or Option, you're going to get the space between these two items. But the actual space is supposed to be 8. So I will zoom in, and you see that this, it's extending, and then I have to adjust this. Now select this and then hold shift to select this, then press Alt. You see we have 8. So you make sure that the space between these two items are also 8. So I'll hold this, hold shift to select this other one. Now in between you see it's 7. So you can even drag this down a little. You see you can increase the space when you click on that. So we can set this to 8. Here no need to do for the same thing for this. You just need to drag this one to make sure it's aligned with this other one here. Now let's zoom in and check this. Okay, this is okay. Then if we select this two, in between them, you see we have 8. Now, the next thing left here is the menu bar here. So I'm going to press R and then drag this to create a menu bar for this. So in the menu bar, let's quickly hide this, our layout grid. Let's hide this. And let's make this a different shade. So I'm going to select this and try to make this much or thicker. Let's make that thicker. And for this, I'll try my best to make sure double click if you've gotten the same result. So align this at the center here. So we can now specify the icons we have here. I'll press R on my keyboard, hold shift to drag this. So this is going to be our first item on the menu. And we need at least 5 items. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 5. So we can space these items. We can select all these items. And let me show you a simple trick here. Click on this 3 dots and we can distribute horizontal spacing. Now I can adjust these items towards the center of the screen. So this is our low fidelity. So here we're going to transform this into a mid fidelity, which we're going to introduce more details to this. Now let's quickly select this and press Command D to duplicate this. So this, we're going to rename this from low fi. This is going to be our mid fidelity. So here we can now start introducing some other more designs and more details. We can add icons. To achieve that, I'll select this icon here and then click on plugins. Search for Iconify. So I'll select this and this is going to give us the list of some icons. So here let's look for search and you can pick any of this on our final fidelity, we're going to look for the appropriate icon. This is for illustration, so I'll just drag this and drop this here. That's for this. Then we can look for bell. Let's search for bell. That's notification bell. So I'm just going to check this a little, look at that, and we can drag maybe this and drop this here. So don't worry about the size. If you're getting the same thing, I'll show you how to resize this. Now close this, and for this, if I select this on the right hand side, you notice under the layout we have the width and height for this. Lock this and let's change this to 16 or 24. So you see we've adjusted the space, and then I can just drag this and drop this somewhere here. The same thing for this. I'll make sure this is 24. Okay, that is already 24. I'll just adjust that somewhere here at the center of this ellipse. Now for this text here, I will take that away and then press letter T here, or letter T on your keyboard, and this is going to be location, and I will want to change that to gray. So we can pick this color, select this, and I'll pick this color here. So let me make that a little bit darker. Location. So here we can just adjust that. Then we can delete this again. So Ctrl D to duplicate, and we can say here Nigeria, and I'll adjust that. So for this other one here, I would want to make that tiny. That's the location of the user, and we can even do better by adding an icon here for this location. So we can go back to this, click on plugins, and then I have Iconify here already. So we can search for location, and let's use one of this. I'll just drag this and drop this here. So don't worry about the size. We're going to do the same thing. Make sure you're selecting this on the right hand side here. Close this and adjust this to 24. Then I'll drag this and drop this here. Now we can just bring it somewhere here. So because this is tiny, we don't want to make this 24. I will have to resize that here again to maybe 12, so that it's almost the same height with this. That's the location of this user. This is supposed to be meal of the day. If we go back to our design, I will just go back to the first page here. You see we have meal of the day. So now we can come back here and then add some text here. Let's see, meal of the day, I guess. And we can just increase the size of this. Let's see, I'll make this 32. And that looks too big. So 24. We can manage that. And we can add maybe an image, whatever we want. I think for now, let's just maintain the straight line. Let's not break this. I will just reduce this here. Back to, let's see, 16. Meal of the day. Let's change this to somewhere here, medium. And any other design, the colors and the rest. So this is going to now take our different food categories. So now I'm thinking we maybe add the categories inside. So the text here, let's see how this is going to be burger. Let's adjust the size here to 12. Burger here. So come back in here, press letter T, and this is going to be pizza. So come back here, letter T. This is going to be soup. Let me try to duplicate this, Command D or Control D. If I do that, you notice it's behind this. All you need to do is to right click and bring to front. So this is going to appear here. So this time we're going to change this to Chinese, I guess. So you can take your time to arrange this, but it's just to give us an idea of the different categories of what we're going to have. Then we can even add images inside here. So I can use another letter R, or we can just keep this like this. I think we keep this simple. So I'm going to delete this and replace that with a letter T, which is going to be our meal, or we can just say best seller. Yeah, mostly used for books, but I don't know why I can't think of anything here. So let's just increase the size of this. Make this semi-bold here, semi-bold. Then for this here, we can now add maybe the name of the meal. So just a beef burger. So duplicate, drag this. So pizza, like the name here. I think that's it. And any other thing we want to add here, so it's going to be the same thing. I'll just Command D. Okay, let's just assume the names are hidden here. So for this other section, let's quickly add some icons for this. Now I'm going to select these 5 items here, and I'm going to delete them. Then let's select this and go to plugins and iconify. Now let's search for home. I recommend we pick this. You can pick any icon of your choice. That's for home. The next thing is let's search for heart. So I'm going to drag this and drop this here. Let's try to resize this. You can always drag this. Let's resize this and see. I'll make sure I close this while selecting this. Let's change this to 24. And we want to just drag this here. We want to see the thickness of this. Okay, I have this option here, so I can drag this other option and drop it here and see. So we can always go with anyone. That's for the heart. The next one is, let's say, lists. We need an order list, something that just can show the list of orders. Okay, this would have been great, but I don't like its field. So we can pick any of this. So I'll pick this here. That's our list or history. Then the next thing is to search for a bag or a basket. So for this, let's look for this. I'll drag this and drop it here. Let's see how it looks. Okay, that is fine. Then let's look for user. We can drag this. Let's see if I have a better option here. I can drag this here and drop this. Let's try this as well. So one thing I always look at is the stroke size. Most of this, you can't change the size of the stroke. That's why I'm trying to look for the ones that are almost the same. So this is thick. If this is thick, then I can take this away. This is already 24. So we can select this, close this, and make sure it's 24 like this. Then the same with this. So for this now, we need another back that have a more thicker stroke than this. So we can go here and search for back. That's supposed to be back, not BG. So I'll look for one with a more thicker stroke. So let's try this and see. Okay, they should have a more thicker stroke. Close this and let's adjust that to 24. It's preferable compared to this. So let's just close this. Since this is not the final version, we can always look for icons. So I'll take this away. So we all have our icons. So this is going to be somewhere here. And we have this here, this, and yeah, we have this. So one thing I love doing for my menus, I like adding text. So press letter T. This should be home here. And we can adjust the size of this from 16. Let's see, we're making that 12. Let's make this 10 for now. Then instead of semi-bold, let's make it medium. So we have this. So Command D, drag this. This is going to be our wish list. We have this here. Command D to duplicate. This is going to be orders. And then Command D, this is going to be your cards. And Command D, this is going to be your accounts. This way. So now we can arrange these items here. So one way to do that is to select this, hold shift to select this other one here. Then we have the alignment tools. What we need is this one here to make sure that's the home, that's the icon, and the text are aligned together. So we have this, so you can just immediately group them by pressing Command G to group these two items. That's it for this. So we do the same thing for this, hold this, and you can even try to check the spacing between them. But for now, we're going to be using maybe 2 or 0. Once you select this, let's try to center these items together. So we're going to use this icon here and then Ctrl G to group. So to check the spacing between these two items, we have that here. That's under layout. So if I just say 30, you notice it's gone. So here you can now say, let's say 2. That's for the spacing, or I can keep that to 0. The same thing, let's try to adjust that for this. This is going to be 0. Then we can do the same thing. Select this 2 and make sure spaced well. Here you can even 0 and Ctrl G to group. Select this 2, then align them to center. Then the spacing between them 0 and Ctrl G to group. The same thing, select 2, align to center, spacing between them 0, and then Command G to group them. We can now align these items here, and we can do the same thing here for this. Select all the 5 items, then we can use this icon here under position and horizontal spacing. Once you've gotten that, you can now make sure that they are all aligned together on a straight line. Then drag this, make sure you're getting the cross sign. We can release that, and you see we have our mid fidelity. If you want to add this text, we can duplicate here and bring this here to this. This is going to be Chinese, and you can do for this Command D. This is going to be, let's say, soup, like this. So we have this, and we can now work under high fidelity. Now let's quickly create the high fidelity. Select the mid fidelity, Command D to duplicate, and let's zoom in. The first thing we want to change here is the size of this. I want to make sure that it's even. So while this is locked, we can make this 34 or 36. The same, I'll quickly do the same thing for this. We make that 34. We can now work on this. I'll select this. Instead of 24, I can just quickly change this to 18. That's for the search. Don't forget to lock this. Now bring this to center here. You can select this and then select this item and then use this here, and it's going to place this at the center without struggling. Let's change this fill, or let's add the stroke first to this, and let's change the fill here to white. So you can drag this to this point here. We have white. Then for the stroke, we can change this. I already have an idea of what we are going to type. So E3, E5, and then E9. So we want this to be this color here. For the stroke here, we can as well adjust this to a better color, but let's work with this. Now we want to do the same thing for the search, but to achieve that, select this ellipse, right click, and go to where we have copy and paste, the copy/paste. Now you're going to click on copy properties. Once you copy that, you can come to this end here and select this ellipse. Right click again where we have the copy/paste properties here. Now you see it has the same property that we have for this. So that's one easy way to do that. For the meal of the day, we want to add an image here. So this icon, let's try to make that our primary color. Go to selection color. We can try F2 4F04. I already know these colors already, so that's why I can easily just type that. There's no need to memorize this. We can easily pick them here using this. But because I've used this color recently, so that's why I was able to remember the hexadecimal code. Select the icon here, go to plugins, and let's search for Unsplash. So here we can search for, let's say, burger. So we have different options here. You can select whichever picture you want, But once you've gotten any image you want to use, let me fix the spelling of this burger. We have better results now. You can select the screen here. That's where we want the image to be, and then pick any of this image like this. So I'll look for a more decent picture or something that aligns very well. Let's try this and see. Okay, so let's say we are picking this particular image now. I can then close this. We need to just add some little tweak to this. So select the text here and we can change the color of this back to white. Here, instead of meal of the day, so we can just say pick of the day. We can as well try to make this a little bit bold, and we can align this here. Let's just keep this simple. So for these are items here. I want each of this to have different colors. I can select this. I already have these colors here, so I did not memorize these colors. This is going to be F3. So that will be the first color here. And you can change them to the ones that, looks better. D2. We have this. I want to change this other one again. F2, F9. Then FF. I have this other one. Then we can just try this last one and see FFF. Then 6ED. 6ED. Let's see. Okay, good. We have all of this. So we can now select images for this. So I can go back to this and search for Unsplash. We already have that. Here, let's search for burger. So once we have this, we can look for an image of burger. I can still use the same image here, or I can use this. I'll just drag this and drop it somewhere here. But then it's going to be very, very big once it finally appears on my screen. So I'll just drag it and drop it somewhere here. So let's search for pizza as well. Pizza. So you can look for a decent picture, any picture you want to use, and you can just pick that here. So we have pizza. Let's just go back to the top and I'll grab this and I'll drop this here. So we have the pizza. So the next thing here, it's soup. Let's search for soup. I can drag this and drop this here. Don't stack it on top of any other image. Just look for empty space and then drop them. So the last item on our list here, let's search for Chinese food. So I can drag this and drop this here. So we have our 4 categories of these items here. Now we need to remove the background of these images to actually use them on our project. So we are going to use a plugin called the Benzene.io. So now you can search, is it Benzene.io? So remove BG, that's this. But before we can use this plugin, we need to register on their website. Then we're going to copy a key that we can use here. So I'll go back to my browser and type Benzene.io. So we have this, we'll use this. Good. So now I think I'm logged in to this already. So you can sign up. Once you sign up, you can now open account. Click on my account. You will get this. Then go to API keys. Now you can click on this to create your API keys. You can even rename this and say, let's say my Figma key. Then we can click on create. After creating the API key, you will have this label and you see we have this. Now I'm going to select this and you see we have the API keys here. So copy this and go back to Figma. Now where we have the Benzene.io, click on this and let's set our API key. Then I can paste this. Now save this. Once it is saved, I can now select this and let's try to remove this background. Go to plugin and then let's remove the background with this. Let's wait for this to load. So now we have this removed. So I'm going to do the same thing for this. Select this image, go to plugins, and let's use this and run this. Okay, this also has been removed. I'll select the bugger, repeat the same step. You can do the same for the last item here. Okay, so we have all our images. Now we need to bring the bugger inside this. So I'll just drag it and drop it here. Don't worry about the size. Just make sure you are at the edge here. Hold Shift and then try to adjust this. You can drag this in, and I think the best way, hold Alt and Shift or Option and Shift, then adjust this to center. Now we have our bugger. I'll bring that here. I will still try to adjust this here till it fits in. So we have bugger. The same thing for pizza. This is not a great image, but we're going to try and do that with this. So I'll resize this, and then let me undo that. Hold Shift and resize this, drag this. And I think the best way is to just lock this and try to resize it here. So let's say 40, and we can have this. Drag and drop this here. So we have this. You see somehow the pizza look as if part of it is missing. So you can select a better image, and for this we can bring this here, lock this, and let's set the height to 40, and it's tiny here, so I will just drag it and drop it somewhere here. So we have this. We're going to work on the size. Then our Chinese, the same thing, lock this, and this time let's just use 60. Let's drag this and drop it somewhere here. So now we can work on the size of this, our items. So this, we have burger. I think this looks great. So for pizza, the only thing here is just that part of it is not visible. Then for this, let's change this to 60 again and see. Okay, this looks great. And I think I can increase this size here to 80 or 100. Let's see. Then we can have this like this. So I'm going to show you how we can actually hide this here. We can hide this spoon so that it just stops somewhere here. Then for this also we can reduce the size of this. So I'll just drop this down here. Make sure that everything is just within the circle. Yeah, okay, so that's great. So now for us to be able to hide this spoon, I'm going to select this rectangle here. Once you've done that, right click just the rectangle and then frame selection. Once you've achieved that, select this, our picture here, and then press Command X or Control X. This time, make sure you're selecting this particular section here. It's now going to be frame, not longer rectangle. Then press Command V or Control V to paste that inside. But once you do that, you notice we still have this spoon going out here. Don't worry about that. You can now select this and use clip content. So automatically it's going to hide that extra space that we have. This soup here, you can press Command X and then select this and Command V or Control V to just paste this somewhere here. So now we have our design. I'm not worried much about the arrangement here because this is just to illustrate how we can create a high fidelity from a mid fidelity. So instead of bestseller, so we can just say best pick for you here. Now let's work on this section here. To do that, click on the icon here. Let's add an image for that. So let's go to Unsplash, and this time we're still going to search for burger. Then select this rectangle and we're going to pick this image here. Now close this. So on this, I will select this text and drag this up here. Let's add another rectangle on this. press R on your keyboard and let's drag something like this here. Let's make sure that the height is 80. And we can change this color. You can use black or white, but for this I'll prefer white. If you use black, it's still going to stand out, but let's use white for this purpose. Here we have this white color, so I can bring this border back here. But notice what happened. If I should do that, it's not visible. So all you need to do is to right click and bring to front. Then if you drag this, it's now at the front here. The next thing is to add a description to this. So while selecting this, I want to change this to 12. Then the description T, I'll set made from. So this is just some gibberish. I will resize this to, let's say, 8. I'll bring this somewhere here, and let's change the font weight to, let's say, medium. And we can just drag this here to make sure that this down is dropping at the bottom. After that, let's add the price still within this letter T, and let's add the price here. Let's say 4.5 cents. And let's make the size of this 14. And I'll press enter. So we have this set to 14, and this is going to be medium. The next thing is to add a button here. So we're going to press R on the keyboard, drag this, make sure you're holding shift so that you create a rectangle instead. I want this rectangle to be 24 by 24, so I'll change the height there. And we want this to be rounded. So this time I'm just going to select this and use 24. Then let's change the color of this to this our primary color, which is this here. So I'll select this and copy this color. Then we can click on this button and paste that color here. So this should allow the user to be able to order this item. So we need a plus icon. So click on this. Let's go to Iconify and search for plus. Feel free to pick any icon of your choice. So I'll just drag this. So now we can bring this in here. So for the icon, I'm going to resize this to 16 by 16. So we bring this here, and let's change the color of this icon. Scroll down and make sure you're using the selection color and change this. Now we have this our item here. So we can now start the arrangement. One thing here is that none of this item is inside a group. So if I drag this, you see they are not inside one group. We want to make sure that they are all in a group. So for this item and then this other ellipse here or rectangle, I want them to be in one group at the bottom. So press Command G or Control G. So every other item now, we can now group them. Click on this empty space, drag this, make sure you're selecting everything, just this content. This time, we're not going to use the Control G. We want to frame this item. So right click and the frame selection. So this is going to put them in one group. So if I try to move this now, you see this is one group. This is another way to group your items. Now we want to add some property to this frame. Select this, let's add a shadow to this. So now click on effect, that's the plus sign for shadow. You see we have this shadow here, but we need to fix this. And we want this edge here to be rounded. So select this, and for this, go to where you have appearance and change it to 12. Once you've changed that to 12, then click on this clip content here. So you see now we have this rounded corner radius. So let's go back and work on our shadow. Click on this, and for the blur, I'm going to change that to 30. And then for this, I can switch that to 5. And you see we have this effect here, and it's soft. You can tweak this to actually get what you want, but the shadow, it's more than enough here. Most of the time, I will add a stroke to this, so I can select this and then add a stroke. But adding the stroke now, you can now play with this to whichever type of stroke you want, but I will go with something here at the top here. Okay, so this looks great. So for this other item here, we make sure that it's not black, so we reduce the color to a gray color, but then thicker. That's the gray should be darker. And then for the font weight here, we can use regular for this. And I would have want this to be smaller than this, but it's okay. So we have this section, but if I should select this, somehow I feel it's like there is one section of this that is not covering, or I think it's the rectangle here. Yes, it's the rectangle. Let me zoom in. So drag this and make sure it's aligned with this. So this is how we want our product to be displayed on this. You can select this and actually play with the color. Let's try to change this to this our color and see if it looks good. Yes, it actually looks great. So now all we need to do, I would delete all these items here, delete them, and I can select this since it's a group, Command D, and then I'll just duplicate that and drop it somewhere here. So we can do the same thing, select these two items, Command D, duplicate them, drag them here. Just make sure you're deleting this soup and Chinese. Then you can select these two and try to push them here. But mind you that we need to send these items to back so they don't cover this. So right click and send to back. So now they are now behind the menu here. Let's change the images and the details of this. Click on this icon here, go to plugins and Unsplash. The next thing I'm going to search here is pizza. So we can look for this. So double click, make sure you're selecting this rectangle at the right hand side, or on the right hand side here. You see I have my rectangle. Make sure you are having that. Then you can select whichever pizza you want. So I'll pick this, and then we should have that here. I will rename this to pizza. Let's search for soup. I can select this and let's see if we have other options. Okay, I think let me use this. So this, I'll change this to soup. The last one here, we can search for Chinese food. So let's select this. Let's make sure you're selecting the rectangle. You see how I always double click to select this, because once you select this, it's going to select the group first. So if I do this, you see it's selecting the frame. If I double click, then it's going to select the rectangle. Then I can add this on the screen. So let's try to align these images here. So double click to select this. Once you select the image, I can use the arrow key on my keyboard to push this so that we can have just the image. So the same thing, double click here where you have this, use the arrow key on your keyboard. Try to push this to the top. If you want to go left and right, you can do that. But then just make sure that the image is covering everywhere on the screen. The same with this pizza, double click where we have our pizza. I'll push this here. We have this our pizza here. I would rename this to Chinese food. And the only thing left for us here is this other section. You can select this and change the color of this to white. Once it has been set to white, the next thing is to add a stroke to that. This time we want the stroke to be at the top of this screen here. Then we can adjust the color here, somewhere here like this. I think this is fine by me. Then I will select item 1, 2, 3, 4 here. So where we have the selection color, 80, 80, 80 here. Okay, that is good. So for this, we're going to select this selection color and use our primary, since that's the home page. And you can take your time to work on this. So for this other section, let's see if this is 60, that's okay. Then for this item here, select this and let's make this 80, 80, 80 as well. Then select this other one as well. Selection color 80, 80, 80. Press enter. Then we have this. So for this other section here, let's see, we can just try to play with this here and even add a button to this. So here we can see get free delivery for this. So we can adjust the size of this. I'll select this and let's say 10 free delivery for this, and instead of this we can use, you can add, I can go below this, get a free delivery for this. Then we can press R rectangle to now create a button here. So for the fill, we're going to use our primary color, and let's add a stroke to this. Let's try to play with the stroke. Let's see how white is going to look here. Let's change the corner radius here to 12. Okay, that means for the stroke here, I'm going to use something like 0.5, half of that. So it's order now, T, and this is going to be order now. So we can bring this somewhere here. So this is the banner. It's not too great, but it will do. If you want this to be fully visible, all you need to do is you can select this rectangle again, this particular big image, press Command D or Control D to duplicate this. Once you do that, you can now go to the right hand side where we have the image minus the image. Don't worry about that. So for this, make sure we're changing this to black. Once it is completely black, then go to where you are having the opacity here and start reducing this opacity till this item becomes visible. If you're okay with that, then you can leave it. Your text is going to stand out on this design compared to the previous one. So we can select this and try to open this on a prototype. So you can use Command or Control Shift, then the space bar on your keyboard. So we can open this on a mobile mockup and see. This is how our high fidelity is going to look. There are some things that we can adjust, but as time goes on, we're going to work on this, modify this, and make this more presentable. I can close this. And this is a low fidelity, mid fidelity, and a high fidelity. We can add most of these buttons on this mid fidelity because these are just new ideas. Like we stated earlier, this is just for ideations. And then this is our final result for this. In this section, we're going to be covering prototyping. Prototyping allows you to simulate how the user will interact with your wireframes. It involves creating clickable and interactive elements within your wireframe to demonstrate the user flow, navigation, and the overall functionality of a particular digital product. Why is this prototyping so important? We can use the prototyping to test the user experience, and we can also use that to collect feedbacks from stakeholders as well as the users. We can use prototype to present ideas clearly. Then how can you convert your wireframes into prototyping? So once you have your wireframes created, regardless of the type, we can just convert them by linking each of the prototype to a different page on the app. So let's see the tags for this section and we can move back to Figma. Using your high fidelity wireframe of the food delivery app, create an interactive prototype where user can click on a particular meal button and navigate to the meal detail screen. Here we already have the home screen, but we want it in such a way that when you click on any of this food here available, it should open another screen with the detail of this particular meal. To achieve that, I'm going to select this high fidelity here and press Command D to duplicate. After duplicating this, we're going to clear most of the things here, like this, our details here. That's the address. And this is also going to be deleted. So the easiest way is to just highlight everything and delete. We're going to do the same thing for this, highlight and delete. The same with best pick. So we can take these ones away. So we have this. We can drag this item here to this section. The whole idea is to make sure that the food is covering everywhere on the screen. And then we have this other white section here. To achieve that, we're going to select this our frame and make sure we're increasing the size of this frame. So you see, we can increase it this way, and to the top. You can make sure that it's covering all the way down to the bottom here. Feel free to delete this. Let me drag this up a little so we can delete this items first. Let me select each and every one of this and delete them. So this is our frame. So I'm just going to drag the frame to this end here. So this is what we are having. While selecting the frame or this section, let's remove this here. Make sure that is 0. Let's select the frame again. For this image now, what we want to do is to increase this image. So I'll click this and then drag this somewhere here. Somehow our frame is getting that corner radius. So I'm going to select this particular frame here. That's the one inside the high fidelity, and remove this corner radius. So you notice here it's gone. But we want these icons to be visible. So right click and send to back. So we have these 2 icons here. These other group, don't worry about them. I'm going to select this white background and I'll do this. That's for this now. We can now increase this and I can just push that somewhere here. Let's see, like this. So we want to give some corner radius on this side here. To achieve that, while selecting this, go back to where you are having this corner radius, that's under the appearance. Select these 4 dots. At the top, let's say we're giving, let's start 40 and see. Okay, let's reduce that to 32. Then this other section here, 32. We have something like this. Then the name of this, I'll drag that, bring this here, and I can increase the size of this now. So let's set that to 18. Beef burger. Description, I will have to get enough description for this. I'll drag this and drop this somewhere here. The same with the price. Let's just drop that, and this button here. So we're going to change this other button here so we can delete this. So we're having this here, and if you still need more space, you can make sure you select this and you try to push this down here so you can get more of the spacing, but I'll prefer somewhere here, and it's great that way. For this description, I've already copied some text, so I'm going to delete this and then paste that here so we can increase the size of this, and the price is going to come in somewhere here, and this I'm going to set this to 12. The spacing here we can set that to 18. We have this price goes somewhere here, so we can increase the size of this. Let's set that to 18. And the font weight here, we can use the semi-bold for this. Then I'm going to adjust this a little. So let me just extend this to the bottom here so it just doesn't distract me too much. So we can have similar categories, but let's add a button here first. I'm just going to use this. Let's use this at the top because the top side it's aligned. Or we can select this and bring back the grid system so we know where to stop. So I'll zoom in, and I think this is sitting perfectly well. The same with this here. Let's adjust this. Now I can select this and then hide these columns here. So for this is going to be our primary color. That's this orange. We can set this and press T. This is going to be add to card. I'm going to zoom in, and this here is going to be 16, and let's use medium for that. So for the corner radius, I'm going to reduce this, the height of this now, and the corner radius we can use 48, so we get this rounded corner. So let's select these two items and try to align them together. So Command G to group these items here. So T for text. So now for the similar meals, I'm going to select this and let's say this, copy this, and we can select this screen and then paste this to designs here. So we can arrange them somewhere here. So let's use this button to align this, and I'll use this button as well to align this. So let's drag this somewhere here at the top. So that means this other section here, I'm going to select this and align this to this, the same with this, and we can do the same with this, and also the pricing here. So expand this to this section here. So instead of similar meals, top pick for you. Well, I prefer this add to cart to come somewhere before this, but since this is just a quick prototype, we just want to see how the prototyping works. So this is going to be manageable. Let's make sure we're deleting this icon. Let's search for another icon here. So I'm going to use Iconify. So we can search for chevron. So let's search for that here, and I'm going to use this. So drag this and drop this somewhere here. So here, let me drag this here. So that's our back button. I'm going to zoom in, and for this it's at the back. So now select this item here. I'm going to press Ctrl X or Command X, select this, and I'll paste this here. So drag this somewhere here. So we have this icon here, and don't forget the fill here, it's going to be 808080. So for this, we can even add the heart emoji. So let's come back here, Iconify, let's search for heart. And I can use the fill, this one here, I can just drag that and drop this here. So I will select this, delete this, and drag this here. So I'll just do Command X to cut, select this, Command V to paste, make sure that it's inside this, so we can just drag this here. So for this, let's just say user have added this to their wish list or cart already. So we have this design here. We're good with this, so we need to link this page. Whenever the user click on this, it should open this page. To achieve this, we have the prototype option here. So click on this prototype. We can now zoom this in. If you hover over this item, you notice that there is this dot here by the side. You can zoom out so you can see clearly. You can now click on this point and then drag to point to this frame here. Once you do that, we have all the settings here. For now, when the user click on this, we want to navigate to this other page. So let's select this high fidelity. We can use Command or Shift Command then the space bar to open this. Here you see it shows that I can actually click this page. So once we click this, you see it's going to open this page. But at this point now, we want to also go back to the previous page from here. To achieve that, let me drag this somewhere here so we can see this properly. So now the next thing is to fix this button here so that when the user click on this, it goes back to the previous page. So let's group this first. Select this, hold Shift, and make sure you're selecting this other item here. Now Command G or Ctrl G to group this item. Click on this dot and drag it to this section here. So on click, instead of navigating to another page, what we want to do is to use this back here. Once the user click this, go back to the previous page. Now let's try that here. I'm going to click this, but to actually achieve this, I will make sure I'm going back to the previous page. Now let's open this. Then let's click this here. So there is a situation here because we want this to be as real as possible. We want this navigation bar to be stuck at the bottom here. We shouldn't be able to push this. The same thing with the menu bar here. So let's close this here. And for the navigation, let's switch back to design first. So this navigation, you see, we want to group everything. So I'm going to select each and every one of this item here. So I've selected everything, Ctrl G, and I'm going to name this. Let's just use navbar here. Just double click and you can rename that to navbar. Once this has been renamed, I'm going to select this again. Let's press Command Shift and then the space bar. So now here you see it's still moving. So select this item and go back to prototype. Here where we have scroll with parent, we can just set that to fixed in place. So if I try to drag this now, you see the bottom navigation bar, it's not moving. We want to apply the same strategy to the top bar here. But for the top navigation bar, let's say I group these items first. Let's use this 3 items, Command G, and let's exit that prototype mode so that it's going to be easy. Now I'm going to select this item and then this other one, Command G to group them. The same thing with this item and then the ellipse, Command G to group them. This place, let's add a rectangle. Press R and then drag the rectangle to cover these items like this. So I want it to cover everywhere here. Cover this. Right click and send to back. We can now have our screen here. So you can push this at the bottom a little bit. For this now, let's change the color back to white. I'm going to show you why we need this. So once we have this set to white, let's select item 1, hold shift, select item 2, hold shift, select item 3. Then let's use this icon here and arrange the horizontal spacing. The next thing is to make sure we're arranging them. They are all in the center. Once you're sure of this, hold shift and select this rectangle behind. Then Command G to group them. This is now one entity. If I try to move, you see, we have that one entity. I will undo that by pressing Command Z. I can now, let's say, select this content here and try to push this down a little, or let's just select this item here and try to push this down a little. For the location here, left for me, we can make this much more darker. This is Abuja, Nigeria. Can make that darker. This is good. So let's work on this so that when the user scroll like this, this is also fixed. After grouping this, select this and on the prototype settings here, let's make sure we are putting this, set that to fixed here. So it's going to maintain that. Now I can now scroll, you see this now can go underneath this. But we also want this bottom to be visible. Once we scroll to the top, it should be maybe stocked here so that the user can also place order on this. These items now, let's see. Okay, this is an individual item. Let's go back to design and I'm going to try to group these items now. Everything here, Ctrl G to group, and the same thing, everything here, Command G or Ctrl G. Then everything here, we can use the Command G to group. We have item 1. You can hold shift to select item 2, hold shift item 3. We're going to right click this and then we can use the frame selection. So for this frame selection, we can go back to prototype here. So for this, where you have the overflow here, we can set that to vertical scrolling. So this is going to allow us to scroll vertically. You see, we can now have this and the user can now operate on this. We scroll here, we still have this. So you can decide to push this a little up here. And if I should drag this, you see, we have more space here. If it was like this here, you're not going to get that much space. But if you take this a little, let's say somewhere here. Now, if I push this here at the top, you see we have space. And this is behaving like a real mobile app. Meanwhile, this is just a prototype. So this is how to prototype in Figma. The next thing we're going to cover in this session is user flow and wireframing. When creating wireframes, it is essential to consider the user flow, which outline how users will navigate through your app or website to complete a task. This flow is often represented using basic shapes to keep the focus on structure and interaction. Here are the key shapes and their uses. The first is the rectangle, which represents a screen or a content. The second is circles or ovals, which represent interactive elements like buttons or actions. We have the arrows, which indicates the flow or direction of navigation between screens. Diamonds represent decision points where user must choose between different actions. We have a simple example here of a user flow, which the start here means launching the app. Once you launch an app for the first time, you have to take a decision. Are you registered? If the user is registered, you will proceed to the login page. If you're not, you have another option to click to sign up. Once you sign into the account, you will then be redirected to the home screen. We're going to look at how we can create this simple user flow using Figma. So we have a simple task here, which is to create a user flow diagram for a login process in a mobile app. Includes the decision point for whether the login is successful. So the first thing you're going to create is the login screen, then which is a rectangle. Then we have the login button, which is a circle. Then is the login successful? If it is, then you proceed to the home screen. If it is not, then we can display an error message back to the user and return to the login screen. So let's go back to Figma. So once you open your Figma, close this and let's add a new page here. So this time I'm going to create a new page, which is this page 6. Then we can rename this to user flow. We need to add an ellipse to signify the starting point. So we can select ellipse, hold shift to create this. So this can be any color. I'm going to switch back to design and I can just set that to any color here. So we can add a text here, T, that says starts. So this is representing an action. That's the ellipse. Then we need to add a diamond shape here for decision making. Once the user opens the app, we need to ask the user if they are registered or not. So to add that, let's go back to polygons. So I'm going to hold shift to create this. This time now we need a diamond. So here on the right hand side, change this to 4. So we have the diamond here. Inside, press T to ask, are you registered? Here. So now this is a question, so we can add a question mark here. So on the spelling of registered, I have to fix that. So for this now, this is to make decision. We're going to have two options. If the user is registered, they follow another path. If the user is not, we lead them to another path here. So if the user is not registered, we want to display the login screen. So to do that, press R here and let's tell the user, add a text here, sign up now. So this is going to be the registration screen. But if the user is registered, we want to display the login screen. So I'll have this. Let me just duplicate this. Command D or Control D to duplicate that here. Add a text here, sign in for this. So once the sign up is successful, then we can take the user back to the home screen. So Command D or Control D to duplicate. Then this is going to be press T. Here we can say login screen. here. So, but for now, we want to confirm if the login is successful or not. So we need to add another decision here. So I'm going to drag this and then bring this down here. Then we can Command D to duplicate this here, because this is another decision. We want to check if the login or the details provided is correct or not. So if the login is successful, then we can display this screen here, which is going to be our home screen. Home screen, not the login screen here. So this is the step. We start the app, then we ask the user, are you registered? If the user is registered, then they proceed to login. If they are not registered, they have to sign up here. Then after that, if they sign in here, we check if the password is correct. So now let's press T to add this. So is login details correct? So correct, like this, question mark. So let me zoom in so you see. We can set that. So to center here. So it's login details correct. If it is correct, then bring the user back here. If it is not, just push the user back to the login screen. But at this point now, we need to add the arrows here to indicate the flow of this. So let's make sure I'm grouping everything. Command G. Each of them, Command G. I'll just keep selecting, group the individual items. Command G here. Now we need to create a new file in Figma. So all you need to do is to select everything here, Command C to copy. Let's go back to our Figma. So here I'll create a new file. This is going to be Figma bot. So I'm going to select this, close this, whatever we are having here, and I'm going to paste this here in our Figma. So now we need to use the connectors here to now indicate where we are going. So for the first time, I can select this and then drag to point to this. You can hold shift so that you have a straight arrow. So now it means from here, we flow to this. Then at this point now, if the user is not registered, I can hold this and then drag this here. Then if the user is registered, hold shift and drag this here to get that straight line. Then this is another one here again. So if the sign in is, the user tries to sign in here. If the sign in is correct, we move the user to the home screen. If it's not correct, let's push this back to this screen here. So now we have our flow. We need to make this more clearer here. So are you registered? Let's add a rectangle here. So this is going to be small. I will have to resize this. So bring it somewhere here. Are you registered? The text here can be no. This user is not registered. So let me select this and adjust this a little. This user, are you registered? No. So I can Command D to duplicate this. Are you registered? So we can add yes here. So you see now this is better. So if the user is not registered, follow this path. Then for this, I'm going to select this group here and then drag this because we need space. So if you drag it, you see the arrow will automatically extend itself. So I'll do the same thing here. So we can select this, Command D, bring it here. So it's login credentials correct. So it's login details correct. Yes. So Command D, drag this. It's login no here. So by the time you open this now, you see we start. Are you registered? No. Then sign up. Then here, the next thing is, are you registered? Yes. Then we tell the user to sign in. Then when the user sign in, is login details correct? If it is no, we return the user back to the sign in screen. If it is correct, then we push the user back to the home screen. And the good thing here is we can copy this, Command C to copy this, and you can bring it back here, Command V, and you will still have your arrows and everything here, and you can manipulate them the way you want. You can as well change the colors of this. There's no rules to the colors that you're using, so I can change this to whichever color I want, like this. This is how to create a user flow. What to have in mind is this diamond shape is for decision making, the rectangle is for the screen, then the circle here, these are just actions or buttons. In this section, we're going to be looking at UI components and styles. UI components are individual elements that users interact with on a website or an app. They include buttons, input fields, forms, navigation menus, sliders, and more. These elements are designed to be reusable, allowing for consistency across different parts of an app or website. For example, a button is a UI component that users click on to take actions such as submit or sign up. On the right hand side here, we have some examples of UI components, the search bar, buttons, different types. We have the alert, and we have badge, and also another example of button, a simple card, some icons. Now, how can we create components? And why are these important? We can use tools like Figma, Sketch, and Adobe XD to create our components. Why are style guides and design systems important? A style guide is a collection of design elements such as the color palettes, typography, spacing, and button styles. It ensures that every element in your design looks and feels consistent. Style guides are part of a larger design system which include reusable components, code snippets, and guidelines for building apps or websites. Design systems help to streamline design process, especially for large teams, by standardizing all the elements needed to build digital products. We're going to design a button component in Figma with 3 states: the default, the hover, and the click. But before we do that, we're going to create a simple style guide and apply it to our design, where we're going to build a simple form, buttons, alerts, components, and items like badge and labels. Let's dive back to the Figma file. Here, we're going to create a new page. In case yours has been covered by this, you can have this, and you can always drag and then push this to the bottom. Now, let's add a new page called the style guide. Style guide. In this style guide, we're going to be creating typographies that we can use in our buttons design and other UI components that we will be creating in this session. Because this is a crash course, we're going to be creating few typographies that we can just use for this particular session. I'm going to add the first typography. Press T on your keyboard, and then we can add, let's say, small text. Small text. So for this, we're going to set the font size of this, and then the font weight, we can set that to semi-bold. As for this, the line height here, set this to 20. Once this has been set, we're going to be using the font family Inter, the default font. We can now duplicate this here, and instead of semi-bold, we can have the medium here. So for this too, we can now save this to our style guide. If you click on the empty space, you'll notice we have this local style. All the style guide that we're going to be adding will appear here. Select this text and scroll down to typography. Click on this icon here, and there is a plus sign here to create a style. So for this, we're going to set this to text minus SM, then semi-bold. We can now save this. Once you create this, if you click on the empty space, you see we have this text minus SM semi-bold. Now I'm going to click on this again, and then let's do the same thing. I'm going to click this and create a new style guide. This is still going to be text minus SM, but for the size here, this is now medium. So you can just use MD for medium. So we can create this here. Now you see we have the MD and we have the semi-bold. Then the last typography I want us to add is for the larger buttons, which is going to be 16. Let's add a new typography. This time I'm going to press letter T on my keyboard. This is going to be LG text, large text. I'm going to detach whatever I'm having here because when I type this, you notice all the properties are gone. So here we need to detach this. Once I do that, I can now change the size of this to 16. And then for the line height here, I'm going to change that to 24. Now press enter. Then we can as well work on the lighter version of this. This is the semi-bold. I can command D, duplicate this, bring this, and then I can change this to medium. So we can now save this, come back to this icon here, and then create style. So this is going to be text minus LG. Then we can see semi-bold here. Then we can create this. Then I'm going to click on this again and create a new one here using the plus sign. This is text minus LG. Let me use the lowercase here. Then this is going to be MD, which is the medium. So we can create this. So what we've done is we've created our local style. Let's create our first button here. I'm going to show you a new way to add buttons or create buttons. Right now, click on letter T on your keyboard and let's say download. On your keyboard now, we can convert this to something called the auto layout. Press Shift A on your keyboard. Automatically, this is going to be added inside a frame. If I should open the layers here, you notice we have frames here, which is this. If I should hide this, it's gone. So now for this, you can even add a fill to this. And you see we have this. The advantage of using this auto layout, once I keep typing here, let's say download this movie. You see the button keeps responding. If I keep adding text, it's going to keep responding to this. So that is why we are using the auto layout to create this button. We can now set a primary color. So the colors are also part of the style guide. What I'm going to do here is to press letter R, drag this somewhere here. We want to create our color. So for this, I have a particular color in mind that we can use, 69. This is 38, and then we have EF. So this is the primary color I want us to use. So this time I can just copy the text here, click outside, and then press T on your keyboard. I'm going to paste that text here. So mind you that it's coming with this, so I can detach this, or you can select any of this style here, maybe this small one here. You can select that. So now we can add this item here, and we can select these two items, and you can frame them together. Right click and then frame selection. Once you frame this, you can add a fill to this. Once you add that fill, you notice we have this, and you can drag this somewhere here. Let me click outside and then drag this here. You can extend the size of this if you want. So here I can write T and say this is our primary color. So let's come back here, and I will detach this so that I'll have more flexibility. This is our primary color, and I'll say this is the hex. So you can detach this as well and reduce the size of this. This is our primary color. This is going to be okay for now. So let's add this primary color to our design style. Now double click to select the rectangle here. Once you have this, click on these 4 dots here. Now click on the plus sign. And if this variables is highlighted, this is what we want here. That's the style, not variable. This time you're going to name this primary. And at this point you can create this style. If I close this and I come back here, you see we have colors we have just primary color, and for the text we have this. Now if I select this our item, this is going to be a small button, so we can select this and then we can use this first one here, which is the text but it's semi-bold. Then select this frame. Let's apply the color to this our button. So we're going back to the fill, click this, and then we can look for our primary color, which is this color here. But if you have lots of distractions like I'm having here, I'm just going to use this here so I can easily scroll down and then see our style guide here. So I'm going to select this. And at this point now, you notice we have this here. Now, if I select this item, I can easily change the color of this to white. So this is going to be our first button, but we need to do some little adjustments here. For this button, I'm going to make sure that the spacing at the top and bottom is 8. On the left and right, I'll set that to 14, which is this. So for the auto layout, if you notice the flexibility we have here is that on the left and right, let me just increase this to 40. You see, we now have this space on the left and right, but I'm going to stick to our previous value. The same with top and bottom. We can do this 30 and you notice this, but I will stick to our previous value here. Now we have our button, and I can come in here and adjust the corner radius to 8. If you want to reduce this to a small number, you can use 4, but always make sure you're using multiple of 4. So 4 plus 4, 8 plus 4, 12 continuously. So let's say this is our first button, and I want us to fix one other thing here, like the spacing between each of this item. We're going to change that from 10 to 8. So you're not going to see any effect for now till we start adding other properties like icons to this. So for this is going to be our, let's say, small button. So we can see SM, that's for this small. You can select this item, Command D to duplicate this. So this is going to be, change it to MD, that's medium. So for the medium, we're going to change some of the properties here. So for the spacing on the left and right, I'm going to make that 16. And then for top and bottom, I'm going to change this to 10. So that we can have the difference here. So that's the medium. So from this, we can select this and Command D to duplicate this. So here, I'm going to change this to LG. That's the large button. So for this, the spacing on the left and right, I'm going to change this to 18. And then for top and bottom, I will use the same size here. But for the text, here we can select this and change this to large, which is 16 here, but semi-bold instead of the small. So we can change the text here. So automatically it's going to increase the size of this button for us because the text has just been increased. Now we can Command D to duplicate this item here. So we want to create an extra large button. So this is going to be XL. That's the extra large. For the spacing on the left and right, we're going to change this to 20. And then for top and bottom, this is going to be 12. For the text, we're going to stick to the same size. Now we have a collection of buttons. But how can we turn or convert these buttons to components? We can right click and then drag this to select all these items. So we can create a component set. Once I click on this, we now have a component set. But how can we use this? Let me just show you. We can go to assets and you see we have our local components files. So we're going to select this. Once you do that, you can now drag one of this button here to this. But the advantage now is, let's say I need a large button. All I need to do is to select this and use the extra large. You see, it's going to increase the size. If I need a small button, I'll just select the SM. Medium, we can select this, and then the LG, we can as well select this. This is going to allow you to create your designs with ease in case you're working with a group. So where they need to use a smaller button, it's very easy. All you need to do is to make sure you drag the component to your design and you're using a smaller button. The style has been set. And now we can even go ahead and make this more interactive by adding properties to this. So select this here and rename this to buttons here. So once you have this, you now see we have buttons, and if you select this, you see we have buttons here. So now let's work on this as well. So if I select this here, where you have the properties here, you can select this and change this to size. So now if you select this here, you see we have size here for this button. You see we can small, small then extra large, which is this. We can add more properties to this. Let's say if you don't want the user to come in here and start double clicking to edit the text, we can add some properties to that. So double click to select this particular text inside this button. Now here we have this icon here. If I select this, select all the matching layers inside this for us. Then we can create a property for this. Scroll down to where we have typography. Underneath that, you see we have this icon. But before we click this, make sure you align your text to center like this. Then we can now click this item here. So here, I'm just going to change this to title. Then we can create this property. If I select this button here and I scroll back to the top screen here, notice we have the download here. All I need to do is change this to button, and we have this. Let me select this and Command D to duplicate this here. And I can come in here and change this to download. And you see, and we can change the size as well to small. And we have this. This is how components work in UI design. In our project, we're going to create all the component sets of everything we need within our files. This is just a sample. We can add icons and then make them optional. We're running out of time, so we're going to stop here and continue in the next session. If you're still watching this bootcamp and you're not subscribed, please kindly hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.